So thank you all for being here today. We know you have lots of choices in this time of mixed virtual and in person, and we're delighted you chose to spend time with us. We're continuing this week to look at the material in Edwin Gaines's book, For Spiritual Laws of Prosperity. And we're going to be wandering around in your section on goal setting. Now, for some people, the idea of setting goals is utterly terrifying. It brings up all sorts of unfinished business, old stories about expectations and worthiness. It can also wake up the monster of self-doubt, fear, and anxiety. Who would want that? And there's also no rule in any rule book that says you have to set goals or achieve anything in your life. But there's a question. What do you want? What do you want to do or be or have or become? There's a fragment of an old story recounted by philosopher Martin Buber in his Tales of the Hasidim. And it goes like this. Before his death, Rabbi Zuzah said, "In the coming world, they will not ask me, 'Why were you not Moses?' They will ask me, 'Why were you not Zuzah?'" And really, that's the question. If we're not who we are and present that, what are we doing here? It's a wicked question, honestly, because if we were to show up as ourselves, who would we be? What would we want? And whose permission would we need in order to achieve that? And what would we have to do that we haven't already done to let ourselves achieve that? I say those sentences like it's just one thing, but it's really not. What I actually believe is that it's a series of ideas, a series of notions that we each get to explore over our lifetime. And everyone's list is going to be slightly different, unique to them. And here's the trick, right? We don't accept this good to please someone else. We do it to express and explore the wondrously divine beings that we already are. We just don't know it. In the Gnostic Gospel of Thomas, there's a somewhat famous couplet that reads, "If you bring forth what is within you, it will save you. And if you do not bring forth what is within you, it will destroy you." That sounds like a penalty or a judgment or a punishment from some external deity. And I really don't think it is. I think it's just an expression of the truth. If we don't do what we have chosen to come here to do, we're missing out on our full expression of our divine nature. And for some, it might be working with kids and watching the joy and the light bulbs come on as they learn new things. For others, it might be visiting places and other cultures and expanding our worldview. It might be learning a new language well enough to understand humor in that language, or to be able to discuss intangibles like poetry or philosophy. It might be creating physical objects in a particular medium. I have a photographer friend who lives in Connecticut, whose joy in life it is to find antiques and make them work again. It doesn't matter to him a whole lot whether they're old cameras, old locks, old farm equipment, old trucks, whatever. His joy is finding artifacts of history and restoring them to usefulness. For some people, it might be working with people on business ideas. It might be working with ideas themselves, writing or teaching or speaking. It might be fixing stuff. And I forever will be grateful for the handyman who puzzled out how to fix the verandas on my house. He's not good at repetitive work, but if he has to figure something out, he's in his element. And he operates in that moment, in that space, from his place of genius or excellence. Gay Hendricks in The Big Leap wrote about the 4 zones of activity that each one of us can occupy in our lives. The zone of incompetence, where we do stuff we know we're not good at. The zone of competence, stuff we do that we're good at, okay, but it doesn't really float our boat. It doesn't give us any sense of joy or satisfaction. The zone of excellence, stuff we do well, stuff we're sometimes very well, stuff we might even make a living doing. It's comfortable, it's reliable, it's familiar, it's easy, and may ultimately be unfulfilling. And then there's the wicked zone of genius, where we use those gifts that are uniquely ours, things that we're uniquely qualified to do, activities that use our strengths, our gifts, our skills, in support of some greater goal, some greater calling. This is the area for each of us that really lights us up when we think about it or talk about it or do it. What's it take to find that sweet spot and stay in it? It's challenging because sometimes it really seems like hard work. And I do think that we each bounce through and between each of these 4 goals for much of our lives. And we figure out what we love doing by doing lots of things that we don't love doing. But back to goal setting. We create goals to help us achieve our desires in all 4 zones. Those things that we feel incompetent with, but do anyway. Those things that we feel competent with, those things we do well, and those things that are genius for us. I don't need to fix my own porch. I know porch is a thing I needed fixed, and I have enough sense to find somebody who has the skill, know-how, and imagination to make it right. I also don't need to fix my own fill in the blank or solve some challenge I have. I just name it as a thing that I want to experience differently than I do right now. And then I spend time and energy that I need to find a pathway to make a solution or to create a solution. I was talking to my dad this morning, and their TV blew up last week, and he's realized that he's not going to be able to get it fixed, so he needs to find a new one, but it's wall mounted. So he not only does he need to find a new TV, but he has to find somebody to carry it from the store, stick it on the wall. And he doesn't need to know how to do any of that. He just needs to know how to find somebody who does. And that's true for all of us, because we have areas in our lives that we're good at what we do, and maybe even expert and joyous. And then other stuff that just needs to be done, but we don't have to be the ones that do it. I'm happy to hire somebody else to do things that I can do and don't enjoy. And I'm sure that's also true for you. And I can set a goal for myself and just do what's necessary on my part to move that goal forward, even if it is only call so-and-so to get it done. So Edwene is very definitive in her point of view about goal setting. In her view, it must be tangible. About desiring intangible, non-material things, she wrote on page 95 and 96. When people ask me, can I put more love in my life on my goal sheet? I tell them, honey, no, you've already got all the love you're ever going to get. And some people get really depressed when I tell them that. But what they really need is not more love, but to be more aware of the love they already have. She continues, and this is the kicker. You are a child of God. You already have all the wisdom, intelligence, faith, peace, and love there is. You're not going to get any more of that intangible stuff. So don't even bother writing it down. Why ask for something you already have? Besides, if you put down more peace in your life and more peace comes along in a form you don't recognize, you'll miss it. What a waste. But I can guarantee that if you put down a bright yellow Lamborghini race car and that sucker comes along, you're gonna know it. She continues, I had one woman who told me she wrote down as a goal at one of my workshops, I want more love in my life. Then when she got home, the neighbor gave her a pregnant dog. The woman got exactly what she asked for, but it wasn't what she wanted. She should have written instead, I want a baby. I want a new lover. I want to take a vacation with my 5 closest friends. So why don't we specifically ask for what we want? And if you need to caveat it by saying this or something better, go ahead. But really, why don't we ask for what we specifically want? What's so hard about that? For a lot of people, it's really, really hard to own our desires. So Sharon read this earlier today from Dr. Ernest Holmes from The Science of Mind, page 288. Know that the greater abundance of every good thing which you are bringing out in your life, the more perfectly you are satisfying the divine urge within you. And then Holmes is yelling, it's in caps, anything you can dream of is not too great for you to undertake. So back to Edwene, page 96. It's all about being specific and accepting your desires. Don't be ashamed of what you want or feel that you shouldn't have the desires that you do. Your desires are holy. You didn't make them up. They were implanted in you by God. I mean, why would people who come from similar backgrounds desire such different things if God didn't plant those desires in them? Well, I hear the yeah buts arising in my own head. Yeah, but what if I want is harmful for me or hurtful for me or hurtful for somebody else? I have to ask that question. Because if it's really a desire of my heart, then it won't be hurtful for me. It might be a desire of my history, or it might be a desire of my addictions, but it's not a desire of my heart. If it's really a desire of my heart and not something reactive that's activated by history or cultural conditioning or default thinking or some TV commercial that you saw, it's not likely to be harmful or hurtful to you or to somebody else. That being said, don't be surprised when other people tell you that they are disappointed by your choices because you didn't follow what they thought you should be doing. And they may even go so far as to say you've hurt them by your choices. But what's that about, really? Each one of us is a tangle of impulses and desires and wants and needs. And we get to figure out what really belongs to us and what in us is based on our belief system and other people's expectations of us that we have bought into. I was reminded of a fellow I grew up with who was just a little bit older than me. He came from a family of 3 sons. Both parents were fine, upstanding members of the community and belonged to the local Baptist church. They were leaders. They were Sunday school teachers. The dad was a deacon. The 2 younger sons became church leaders. The elder son didn't want to. His story ran a different way. He studied history in college, worked as a librarian at a local library for a while, and eventually taught Southern history and storytelling at the local college. He's had a wonderful life, though he's gotten a lot of pushback because he's a bit of a black sheep in the family and in the community. He followed his genius, and it wasn't socially acceptable. And it gave him a little bit of a hard time, but he did it anyway because that was his love. In my writing workshop yesterday, an Asian woman posted this: my mother's life work has been building moats and fortresses to protect her image of a picture-perfect family. She is triggered and alarmed that my life choices endanger that picture of security for her. I wonder if she will ever see that I am completing her fairy tale in a different way. I replied to her, wondering out loud if it was generational, because my mother had similar worries about me. Her response, which is so classic, oh, I assumed it was personal or cultural because of my background. And I replied, oh, most certainly not. I think it's all mothers who want us to be their image, made in their image. The last time I worked my way through Edween's book, I was still in ministerial school. I wrote down my tangible goals on a Post-it on the pages, and I thought I'd share them with you today because they were pretty interesting to me. And I did pretty well on most of them. They were install a bathtub in my park model trailer, schedule a trip to Houston to visit friends, finish ministerial school in 3 years, weigh 10 pounds less by next April, make an apron for my sister-in-law for Christmas, write that book, and visit Tulum. I had the guy from Rebath come in and give me a quote on installing a bathtub in my trailer. After looking at my trailer, he shook his head and he said it would cost more than the trailer was worth to put a bathtub in it. And he recommended against it. So as soon as I bought my townhouse several years later, the first thing I did was replace the bathtub to make it big enough to be worth using. I did make that social trip to Houston to visit friends. I did make the apron, and I did finish ministerial school in 3 years. I did lose the weight. It did take longer than 9 months. And I'm now finally working on that book. And I still haven't made it to Tulum, but I don't doubt that it will happen when the time is right. By stating our goals in concrete terms, we light a fire under our dreams. It's not selfish, it's wise, and it's supportive of an experience of that divine urge that wishes to express through us and as us. So I want to close with a little piece from Stephen Cope's Great Work of Your Life. I don't know how long it's been since you've read this inspiring book. It's a story about Dharma, vocations and callings, framed around a conversation between Krishna, I should say Lord Krishna, and Arjuna, as told in the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. It's a story of people who live their callings: writers, musicians, scientists, teachers, activists, world leaders, and a bunch of ordinary people. In the epilogue, Stephen Cope wrote, I have come to believe that Dharma gives us the one thing we need to be fully human. Each one of us must have one small place on the globe where we can fully meet life, where we can meet it with every gift we have. That one small place where, through testing ourselves, we can know the nature of life and ultimately know ourselves. This domain, this one place that's uniquely ours, is our work in the world. Our work in the world is this one place where we really have the opportunity to wake up and show up. And I'll add, because we're talking about goal setting, this is the place where we start honestly owning our desires and turning them into goals and taking those first initial baby steps to see them through. So think about who you truly are, and not who other people's expectations of you are, but what you really are, what you really bring to the table, what you really offer to life. And think about one thing you can do to show up that way. Do that. Bless yourself and bless us all. Thank you. So I want to roll into the prayer. So if I gave you some nugget of capital T truth that you can use to light your way this week, hold that in your mind while I speak these positive, affirmative words. I know the light of the divine lives as me and as each beloved here. And I know that that one life chooses to express in and through all. And it expresses as greater joy and peace and love and light and power and harmony and peace and goodness. And I know that each one has a unique gift to bring to the world, a unique expression, a unique individual or group of individuals for whom and to whom they have the one right bit of information. And so I recognize this goodness that we share, this opportunity for goodness that we experience and express. And I know each offers their gift, and each gift is reciprocated and received, and more abundance of all sorts, more good life, harmony, joy, peace, power, order moves into the world as a result of this, and greater life. Because I do believe and know that God expresses life in and through all, and each one has that opportunity to add to the goodness, to add to the life, to add to the joy. So I bless each and all as they move in this way and as they enact their unique gift. I relax into this knowing and know it's not about effort. It's about desire and choice and movement. And God does the heavy lifting. We just have to show up. Relaxing into this ease and flow, I let it be, and so it is.